Christina, thank you very much for accepting to do this interview. I am very excited for the talk. The topic is very interesting, and I'm sure everybody is waiting to hear what you have to say.
Thanks. Thanks for inviting me. I wish I could come in person because I love traveling. But you know, like given the circumstances, we can still meet people these days digitally.
And the topic is traveling as well. So it is good to talk about traveling, at least in the days that we could not travel, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, thinking about traveling.
Thinking, imagining, dreaming of traveling. Yeah.
Yes.
And who knows, probably in future we don't need even to move for traveling. Let's see, we get there. But let me start just by asking you about your data science journey before getting to more specific questions. Where have you started? Why did you choose this field? And where are you now? And for getting here, did you have any obstacles? And specifically, do you have any gender issues that was difficult to deal with?
So my data science journey began suddenly. Well, my background, my undergraduate studies were in Greece. I studied electrical and computer engineering, and honestly, if I think about now, like how much of the courses I did back then were relevant for my job. Pretty much, maybe that would be a 1 or 2%, and this would be the courses I picked towards the last semesters. Probably, though, this experience might resonate with a lot of other people that are working as data scientists, and that's because, of course, it's a very broad field. We're going to get there later. So, after my undergraduate studies, I picked a specialization towards signal processing and telecommunications. Which then brought me to Delft in the Netherlands, the Technical University of Delft, to do a PhD. The topic was in computer vision, pretty much. It was detecting mood and emotions, but mainly mood, from videos. Which, of course, brought me even closer, of course, to computer vision, machine learning, and the advances of the fields. So, and while I was finishing my PhD, I was thinking, I liked it quite a lot actually in academia, but I wanted to give it a shot and see what are the options outside of academia. Of course, I found it really difficult to make up my mind that I want to leave and I wanted to start a job. Like, I had never done it before. I had never worked in the real world. So I thought that this new emerging field at that point, that was like 5 years ago, of data science, might be something for me, might bring together this industrial experience that I want. So the applications, the real world applications with a lot of data, but while always, staying in touch with the latest trends, the state of the art in machine learning and statistics. So then I gave it a shot, and actually it just worked immediately. So then I knew about booking. That was in Amsterdam. I wanted to be in Amsterdam. I like traveling as well. So it was a product I was acquainted with, I was using. And then I was pretty happy that it worked immediately. And I was also pretty happy because it was one of the few companies that actually have big data, so you can get your hands dirty and get experience with from the get-go with working with large amounts of data. That's basically how I ended up there. I am still there. Internally, I have also changed a lot of teams, and also a lot of my focus has changed in what I'm doing. So maybe in a way you can look at it as being in different companies while you're just having slightly different tasks. Sometimes it's more of more exploratory analysis. Sometimes it's more machine learning models that need to be put into production for millions of users. Sometimes it's a little bit more researchy and theoretical, but I've been through all these stages, so I can actually have a little bit of a I have quite a lot of experience and of all the flavors of data science, let's say, at least.
And what you said is actually very interesting, because the comments that you get very frequently, and I have heard it, and probably I thought myself as well, that when you get to the industry, there is not that much variety. You're going to be fixed on one single task, and this is different from academia in that sense, that this doesn't having various topics and things doesn't play that much of a role, and you're given a specific task that you need to finish, and that's it, and that's part of a whole machinery, and you don't have the control over that. But what you're saying is that you have actually tried so many different things that you had room to play with your creativity and having your ideas out there.
Yeah, and in a sense, plenty of room, and well, only comparing with a PhD, maybe even a little bit of more freedom, because in your PhD you are slightly bounded by your topic of your thesis. By no means does this mean that you're going to limit yourself in the papers.
Yeah.
You're right. If you have a brilliant idea, of course you can go ahead and write it, but eventually you do need to write a book. And so for 4 years you need to look at one specific topic, which of course does not necessarily continue in the next steps of your academic career. But in industry, there's no such attachment of topic. Like maybe, maybe you could only contribute to a topic for 2 months, or maybe you get every 2 weeks a new topic as well. So the velocity can depend a lot on where you are, and also on your personal preferences and how much you're, how interested you are in doing other things, but how much in depth you also want to go. There's also this trade-off.
Yeah, that's very cool. Now you already mentioned that you're booking in booking.com, and that is for many of us, booking.com, the gateway to traveling. So this is one of the first places that our traveling begins, by going through different hotel listings and accommodations, and the experience starts from there. Considering that and your experience, how do you think the traveling has been impacted by AI? Where are we now, and where do you think you're going in future?
For the last, indeed, like the last decade for sure, travel has shifted definitely online. So a lot of people would not go anymore to travel agency to find a destination and to book their holiday. So like we're bringing things at the hands of the customers at home. More broadly now, of course, speaking, right, in general, the travel industry has changed a lot. I would say, broadly speaking, with the usage of data science. So I would like expand a little bit the term. It wouldn't be, I don't think necessarily, strictly speaking, about AI has transformed everything, but generally speaking, machine learning, statistics, and basically, like data science as a job, and as a job, has brought new aspects to it. So I mean, there's so many. I'm thinking now of like the starting already from the most maybe for a fundamental functionality of such a provider, travel provider, right? Here you have a customer who is interested in going to a place on specific dates. There's probably going to be dozens or hundreds, sometimes thousands of choices for your trip. Right now you have all of them at your phone. You have a lot of listings. So we need to help the customer make a choice about how exactly get a bit better informed, find something that's suitable for them, find something that is good for them, and ideally also something that fits their personal needs. Different travelers have different needs. You have families, you have business travelers, you have solo travelers that are looking to socialize in other places. So, and all this you need to be able to, often without much information even. You have somebody who just landed on the website and you don't know much besides the dates and the destination. Sometimes you might not even know that, and then you need to inform them properly via a ranking algorithm that will give you the most relevant choices in the beginning. Of course, in other cases, depending on the intent of the user that comes to the website. You might actually need to help them explore the options. Maybe you don't know where you want to go, but you want to get inspired about possible places, maybe based on other travelers or based on the history that you've shown already so far about what type of traveler you are. AI has helped through this. Machine learning, I would say, mainly has helped a lot with processing vast amounts of data, of images, for example, for the listings, so that we are able to classify them and tag them. And then also, we could also use this information in so many different ways. For example, determining when properties are similar to each other, right? So by just looking at meta features or even the content of the images on these images. We just make and another application I can think of is, and this is ubiquitous, right? It doesn't even go into traveling. It would be translations, right? Making sure that messages are instantly translated. And this actually has such big impact, right?
That is important, yes.
People without, people, for example, like my parents, right? That they don't speak any other language besides Greek. They could be able to send a message in their language and just communicate and get a response translated in their language, and they can immediately communicate with the hotel or the property to which they're traveling, and vice versa. It enables the partners as well, the properties as well, without having a big hotel business to actually communicate with the travelers across the globe. Real-time translation is actually a pretty heavy task, and
it is, yes.
Yeah, you can imagine, of course, that I think it's definitely transformed the industry. And of course, a lot of other applications. Like whenever you can think of, like, there is data there, there's definitely going to be a very nice or a lot of nice applications for data science. But yeah, of course, we're not done. There's like so much more to be done, right? I mean, we are happy now with all these applications that we have, but there is, I think, moving forward in the future, there's already starting now with COVID, but definitely interesting for the future would be that we are much more interested in adding adaptivity in our learning. The environment constantly changes. We have non-stationary changes. Well, COVID was, as I said, one case, but it's by far not the only case. It was maybe maybe a wake-up call in the end, that we really need to consider, that we need to get all our models adapting in the future.
That's very true, yeah.
Other things are, of course, like, how do we represent our customer? How do the customer intent? We need to understand when you arrive, what is your goal? Do you know exactly where you're going and you need information? Do you want inspiration? Do you want to explore? And based on that, we can help a bit better.
And I totally agree. I think it's good that you get this surprise element at some point. Probably at the moment where we are standing, it is more like filtering out some options for you based on the list that exists. But in future, probably it would be very exciting to see some suggestion, not even about the hotel, for example, the place you're going to visit, for the machine to understand your taste and know you better than yourself, basically, to suggest you something that you didn't think about before. And that would be, I think, great. I don't know how close we are there.
There are, like, I see in general in travel industry, but also in booking, there is an effort for recommendations, but then for inspiring people. Of course, this can be done in a lot of different ways, and there are also a lot of different ways to evaluate that. But eventually, and this is actually then the magic of the interest of the new domain, right? So every online company can do recommendations, but every single company in every single domain, you have a completely different problem mapped. It's a different density of data, different interactions. And this is actually a nice challenge, right? It gets you to, how can I, as an engineer, how can I make possibly state-of-the-art algorithms work for cases where we have very sparse data, where the users don't come often to the website, and often they don't have to be logged in, so you don't have a lot of history.
And that brings me actually to my other question. many of these things are based on having a comprehensive set of data. So if you don't have enough data on me to know me, then you cannot suggest things that will surprise me, as I said, or that won't have this wow factor. It will be at the end just filtering that these type of accommodations I have and then listing them. But then there is this thing that we want all these to the person recommendations that tell us better than ourselves what is it that we are desiring. At the same time, we are afraid of sharing our data. So where and how we could meet somewhere in between to develop this trust that this is fine. There are certain types of data that you could share, and then we could help you decide better. So how do you think that we could solve that to get to the area of smart traveling much more sophisticated than what we have right now?
Yeah, these are exactly really, they're hitting the nail, your question. So actually, all this need for privacy and of course for the fear of users to share the data, by the way, it is reasonable, but it also opens, again, as engineers, as data scientists, we see this as an opportunity to actually make things work in this situation, right? Yeah. So, of course, ideally, you want to have all the data in the world. You want to have them collected in the most unbiased possible way to extract the right conclusions. But yeah, this is not going to happen because indeed, users, we cannot track all the data. Of course, users are you need to be transparent, of course, to begin with about the data that you're tracking, but always the principle is that you don't track things, you don't store things that are not absolutely necessary for what you want to do later. And of course, as you can imagine, and of course the data, when you get to store the data needs to be anonymized, so you don't have access anymore to the individual, of course, that generated this data. Now, with all the scarcity of data that this generates and the possible biases for certain users deciding to give you access and certain users not, as I said, this opens nice avenues of research of, all right, how can I actually improve the predictions of my models with less data, with less history, as little as possible, with how can I learn from a data set that is possibly biased because of the sample selection bias and make it generalized to the rest of the population. Causal inference question or statistics that are extremely difficult, by the way, but very exciting for data scientists, as you can imagine. So I think there is a very nice sweet spot where you can actually meet your customers while also improving, let's say, the science of things. And to, of course, something that is also happening a lot right now, and I like it a lot, is that we also try to be to have explainable AI, right? We give predictions, it's no black box anymore. When we use the data for a specific reason, when we recommend to you something, where we predict something, we are also able to explain to you why exactly we're doing this. And that makes it, again, this was a nice challenge for us. It's a nice opportunity to understand also what our models are doing. So it's debugging, but it's of course also more transparent for the customers. And then from that on, they can also be aware of what benefits they're getting by sharing data or not.
And how do we inform the public of these, or let's say explanations? How do they know that it exists and this is where they could find it and this is how they can trust us?
This is entirely up to the discretion of the customers. They can always, if they are curious, they can always find a way to get this information. But this is definitely happening, and this is a broader trend.
And now we're talking about data science for some enhancement tool for the traveling experience. But I think, and I want to know your opinion on that data science could be used for enhancing the security while you're traveling as well. This is true that we sometimes are afraid of sharing our data for the privacy reasons. But on the other hand, data science, machine learning specifically, could help us enhance the security. We have a more secure travel in a sense. What do you think about that?
Yes, absolutely. Machine learning, from supervised learning to unsupervised learning, that's where typically you would see the usage of unsupervised learning in detecting anomalies.
Yes.
Would certainly be, or let's say security would definitely be a very good application domain for machine learning. For sure, I believe pretty much every company have their own pipeline, and under the hood, they're also ensuring that they're not data breaches, and that's of course besides their the initial security walls, of course, that there are there, and possible abnormal behaviors by customers or by partners. It's you know, like there is in an online firm, there's just so many things that of course could go wrong, but yeah, machine learning could assist humans definitely in detecting patterns of certain abnormal behaviors and take steps on that.
Perfect. We talked about data science, machine learning at this stage of booking, but do you think this is going to change our experience when we are there during our stays, for example, in the hotels?
Yes, I absolutely think so, because actually as a trip, as a journey, it's typically, we don't just consider, you know, that your accommodation, right? I mean, your accommodation is where everything begins.
Yeah.
But there's just more to a trip than just staying somewhere. It's your experiences, the activities you're going to do, the transportation, how you're going to go from one place to the other. It's about the entire set of experiences you can get. So in this case, of course, AI can help in, and again, machine learning in general can help in all sorts of ways. For example, in recommending some activities to do based, for example, on other user data, or on the weather, on the crowds. Right now, it can propose optimal routes for, you know, visiting, doing the sightseeing you want to do. As I said, hopefully suggesting also experiences that you haven't considered. I think if you want to say that you're actually working on journey on the travel industry, you definitely need to consider of this broader ecosystem of the whole traveling.
Yeah, perfect. You see, I think probably it's reasonable. Now we are in the day that we haven't traveled for many months now. And this is something that we really didn't expect before. Now, considering the COVID and what happened, probably it's reasonable to ask, how do you see the future of virtual reality and augmented reality when we're discussing traveling? Is that going to replace our traveling experiences, or is that going to be a new traveling experience for us, which would continue after the time of COVID?
It's hard to say, actually. Nobody knows what happens. I mean, even though this is our job, right, to predict what's going to happen, but exactly. We clearly failed this year, for example. Well, I wouldn't really know if virtual reality can replace the real traveling. What we have some user data that suggests that people would feel comfortable maybe using virtual reality to familiarize themselves with the destination before actually going there. But it seems that I don't know, people still want the real thing, and virtual reality would more be used as a conduit rather than a replacement of the actual traveling. Something we have seen is that we've seen some shift of trends in traveling this time. So people travel a little bit more domestically, closer destinations, closer to nature, which, including myself, by the way, I have explored the entire Netherlands during this pandemic, which has positively surprised me.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think eventually people will keep on seeking an opportunity to escape in real, but again, who knows?
We are not there to predict everything.
We are not there.
We don't have the crystal ball. But Yeah, but that was very interesting, and it was very nice to talk about traveling and talking to you about in these days about this. That was very interesting. Thank you very much for accepting to do this interview. Do you have any final words that you want to say?
I just, maybe because this is for a course of data science, maybe I just wanted to maybe say a few things about, clarify a little bit what data science actually means. Because it's just a very broad thing, and I think it's good to make it clear that at least in the way I see it and I experience it, not just in Booking, but also in, as I said, in other companies, it's not just about AI and machine learning, right? I mean, as you said, there is a variety of topics, but I mean, data science really encompasses a lot of a broad spectrum, of machine learning, AI, and statistics, right? Or, for example, extracting business insights is a very important part of the data scientist job. In that case, you would not be all day long building a machine learning model that is going to be deployed for the production. However, it can really help the business inform, make a plan or decide their direction. Then, as a data scientist, you can also help the business measure the impact of specific products to the customers. All these components, sometimes there might be, at least as a data scientist, myself, I didn't have this in mind before I went into data science, but I was in a way positively surprised, because these tasks are remarkably difficult as well, right? I mean, we are dealing with, we have to deal with, as I said, data that are not perfect. They are corrupted by noise. We always have missing data, biases. So the statistics component is essential in a data scientist, and it's much broader than simply talking about machine learning models. The options are endless once you decide to go in this field. So I would actually think I would encourage people that have doubts between staying in academia and trying a position in industry. I would encourage them to try this position as a first, at least, step.
That was a very good wrapping up notes. Thank you very much for doing this interview again, and I hope we meet sometime soon in person in close distance.